the big names to show up. So that would be ideal.
Perfect. Zach, since you are Team Blob, I wanted to
Yep.
ask you like a couple of questions. I haven't came into like Jet Johnson's book about the blobs, and actually last year when I went to Alex Weha's house and met
Mm-hmm.
with Chaz and Tim and all the guys, I lifted my first blob, but I didn't knew like there was like different types of blobs on the
Mm-hmm.
history from Richard Sorin. So uh, could you give me like a quick like blob origin story, like 1 or 2 minutes or of talk, not
Yeah.
something too deep,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
for the people in here in
Mm-hmm.
Chile, they are watching like my post of this is the first blob of South America, and they are
Mm-hmm.
like, what's that? I want to touch it. What's it? Can you tell me?
Yeah. So Richard Soren, which is the founder and owner of Sorinex, right? It's a big exercise equipment company here in the US, based out of South Carolina, I believe, a couple hours south of me. Um, and I don't know the era of when it would have taken place, 70s, 80s. So my dates aren't going to be good on that. But um, or maybe that's when the dumbbells were made and then whenever. But anyway, Richard Soren is like a grip strength legend. So Richard Soren, I believe, was like the first person to close the number 3. To my knowledge, Richard Soren is the first person to pick up York deep dish 45s and plate pinch them. So he already had like a monstrous grip, very known for, very well known for his grip. The York dumbbell handles were real thin on those early ones, and people are dropping, 100-pound dumbbells, they'd tend to bend and they would start to break off. So they weren't being cut back then for blobs. They weren't a thing. It was just dumbbells bending, and then the head would break off. So now it's just a broken dumbbell. Well, Richard Soren being a big, strong, grip strength guy, pretty much, I think the story is he was moving some weights from one place to another, and he had that broken head of a dumbbell, which was from a first generation Fat Man, dumbbell, before it was called a Fat Man technically. And he just reached down to pick it up, and he couldn't pick it up. And for somebody that's not used to having, something stop you like that, it kind of like caught his attention. And from then he pretty much made it his goal to pick that thing up. He named it the Blob, and he kept training until he could lift that. And then he kept training until he probably did lifts with, 20 plus pounds on it, and insane feats, that are crazy. But yeah, and it was called a Fat Man because the first generation that York made with those dumbbells, the slopes bow out a little bit wider. So during that original first casting, those slopes are bigger. So that's why that first half 100 head of the dumbbell that broke off, that Richard titled the Blob, that's why it's called the Fat Man Blob. Fat Man because it's of the wider make, or the wider model, whatever you want to call it. But that's the story, man. Richard basically had a broken dumbbell in his floor, and instead of seeing it as just a broken dumbbell, he saw it as a challenge, and pretty much, I mean, created a whole new avenue for people to train grip. And it is what it is today. So if you hear anybody talk about like blobs or training blobs, there really only was one blob, and that was the Blob. That was the one Richard Soren named and lifted, and that's the reason everybody calls these other ones blobs, because of him. So that's the best origin I could give you. Maybe someday on the Grip Show, or maybe some other day, I can get him to give us that story directly from the source, and you don't have to hear it like, I don't know, 10 people down the line or something. But yeah, it was just a broken dumbbell, and you got a really strong grip guy, couldn't pick it up, challenged himself, kept training until he could pick it up, and then it just kind of became a feat of pinch strength, like pinching plates or anything else,
And what did those dumbbells, like the original ones of the Fat Man, stop being produced? Do you know what happened?
I'm not sure. York, they stopped. It's not that they stopped making them; it's that they changed the casting or the mold, so the shape of the dumbbells changed slightly. So,
Okay.
and the only thing that changed was like one side would still kind of slope out, and then the other side would just be a little bit flatter. So it's still hard to pick up, like, and that's like a second gen or next gen blob is what most people refer to. There was a like a middle blue blob in between where like York produced a line of like blue dumbbells that were in like sporting goods stores, but they didn't produce nearly as many of them, and they're a lot more rare to find. But that next gen blob, the casting for it was just a little bit sharper edge on one side, and it didn't slope out as much. So they continued to make dumbbells, but for whatever reason, with the foundry or the company, they switched the casting process, and it changed the shape of the dumbbell a little bit, and they weren't quite as wide. And one more thing to note is like the reason a lot of fat man blobs weigh 52 and 54 pounds,
Okay.
even though they're half 100s, is because a lot of those dumbbells were overweight. So a lot of those dumbbells were 104 to 108 pounds. And then you cut them in half. That's why they come out heavy. So that's why the fat man blobs are more challenging. They're heavier, the slopes are bigger. And when you get into like the 50-pound blobs that are next gen blobs, they're typically right around 50 pounds on the dot. So maybe York was trying to be more precise with their measurements and they shave stuff down. I don't know. That's a theory I'm making up on spot. But the original line of bells was kind of overweight generally. And that's why the fat man blob is generally way over 50 pounds. And next gen blobs are like 50 point something or 49.8. They're like right there where they should be. So,
And where does the legacy blobs like stand in this like timeline of blobs? It's like
they would be
after.
after all those. Yeah, after all those. I could be wrong. There's better resources than me for this. But like the old York Roundheads were probably produced like 70s and 80s. The next gen probably started getting produced in the 90s, and then the legacies were probably produced sometime in the 2000s. You know,
So
to give you a timeline, kind of through that 30 to 40 year period. And like before the Roundheads, there was like what York called the bun style dumbbells, and they had the globe dumbbells. So there's like globes, like there's York globes that are completely like circular.
yes.
Then there's like the bun dumbbells that are like a little more oval, and then they went to the Roundheads, which are like the famous ones that the blobs come from. And then they got to the legacies, was like the last line of them. So yeah, I don't know the exact dates, but that's my best guess.
Perfect. And I know that you have like many blobs in your collection.
Mhm.
Uh, have you had those blobs from Japan, the KWN or something?
Yeah, I had some. I sold them to Ben Helms, so I don't own any anymore. Ben has all the KWN blobs from Japan, but I lifted the 55-pound one that they had, which was very hard because the slopes are very big on them. They have really great texture, but the slopes on them are hard. It's kind of like the slopes of a fat man, or yeah, just like both sides are pretty fat, and it's a hard pinch to do. So lifting that KWN 55-pound blob was one of the tougher blobs I've ever lifted. Even though I've lifted heavier ones, that shape was tough. And I thought that the 60-pound blob by KWN, the Japan whatever blob, I thought the 60 was kind of so far out of reach that I was like, I don't even want to think about this thing right now. And I sold that to Ben.
But are those like created because of the Fatman
Yeah,
blob? Are those like replicas, right?
yeah. It's kind of their version of blobs. Now they don't none of those sizes are exact replicas to a fat man. The
Okay.
closest one to the fat man would probably be the 50-pound blob, but even then it kind of comes in maybe a little thin. So none of them are accurate replicas of a fat man blob, but that's what that probably was. That was their attempt at kind of creating their own, increments for blob training.
And how could one obtain a KWN blob? Are like do they like have a web page where you can buy the things, or it's like harder?
It's tough. It's the same deal like with Joe messaging me and then me getting him a blob. It's like you almost have to know somebody internationally. So there was there was a couple of the Japanese kind of block weight and blob lifters
Yes.
that me and Ben had kind of talked to pretty regularly. And that was kind of how we worked it out. Where like, hey, I'll send you money through PayPal. And and it's like it's somebody in Japan. So like, yeah, we're talking online, but like they could easily take my money and then I never see a blob. Um, so it's a bit of a risk, but yeah. So, we just felt that like through some of the messaging and stuff, we wanted the blobs that bad. We went ahead and kind of worked with people that could get them. So basically what would happen is we'd have somebody in Japan that would buy the blob. We PayPal, cover the shipping, whatever, and then they would just ship it internationally to us. So it wasn't directly from the company. It was kind of like secondhand, or they buy it first and then they ship it to us. But it's just knowing people and who you talk to. But like I said, I don't own any anymore. And Ben has, I think, the 50, 55, and the 60. So Ben has a three-piece set of those blobs that are pretty challenging, pretty challenging blobs, and pretty cool blobs. Anytime there's a blob that's not like the original York ones, but it's like a good kind of replica that's like been cast, it's cool to get your hands on, just because there's not a whole lot of them, and to know that there's like other countries that are making them in foundries, and it's like actually a thing they're doing. That's cool as well. I mean, we don't even have that in the US really. It's rumored that Rogue is doing blobs or something, but I haven't
Yeah.
seen anything with that too much. But so who knows? That guy could turn out to be good, or I don't know. Maybe it'll never turn into anything. I'll believe it when I start seeing more blobs out there. But the fact that there's a foundry in Japan that makes inch dumbbells and block weights was like really interesting to me and Ben. And we thought that those were so rare, and we just wanted to get them and lift them and just see what it was about. And I lifted the 55-pound one, and the 60 was just one that wasn't going to be happening anytime soon. And Ben lifted the 60 the first time he came over, and he picked it up with both hands and certified on that. Yeah, it's actually 60 pounds, but it's a little over. It's about 61, maybe 62 pounds, and it's probably harder to lift than Blobzilla,
Whoa.
depending on your hand size. For Ben, it's harder. It's easier for Ben to lift Blobzilla than it is his 60-pound KWN. So I haven't even lifted Blobzilla yet. That's why I was like, you can go ahead and take that KWN with you. And when I get to that point, I'll mess with it another day. But yeah.
And what about blobs from Nathan? Have you tried one? Do you have any in your collection?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a 24 kg one, which is kind of his Fat Man replica. And but yeah, I have a 24 kg replica, and I want to say it comes out to, if I weighed it in actual pounds on my scale, like 54 pounds. So it's right about like what the heavy range of a Fat Man would be. The edges of it are wider than a Fat Man, and
Okay.
the slopes are a little bit skinnier. Depending on your hand size, you might find the Hall blob easier than a Fat Man. For me, because of the width and where it puts my hand, I think they're slightly harder to lift than a Fat Man. But because our hands vary and the angles of the blobs vary, people have different opinions. Like there's blobs that Ben will say, I think this is harder than that one. And I'm like, I don't think so. It's different for each person. So, but it's close to a Fat Man. Like they're comparable for the 24 kg Hall blob. They're, like I said, the dimensions are a little different, but difficulty wise, they're in the same ballpark.
Okay. I remember like years ago, before I went out from college, uh, I saw blobs online, and I remember that they were not as expensive as these days. And I wanted to ask you, do you know what happened that it was like a hype for the blobs? Was it like related
Uh,
to Brian Shaw and Yuji Mufu making blob videos, and then the
it could
prices
be.
went up? How was it?
It could be a little bit of that, and then so yeah, I mean that's obviously exposing it to more people. So then maybe the demand slightly goes up. But there's also a lot of people that, I mean, they have weights sitting around, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, I've seen several cases where people like have wanted to buy dumbbells. They're like, man, I really want to buy that set of 90-pound York dumbbells. And the seller's like, I can make twice as much money if I blob them. So I'm going to cut them and blob them. So I think if there wasn't that demand there for it, then obviously no one would cut them. If it was gonna, like, you know what I mean? If you were gonna make less by cutting them, people wouldn't cut them. But people are making more if they cut them and sell them as blobs than if they sell them as actual full dumbbells. So I think for some of these vintage weight collectors that don't mind cutting up some of their stuff, or for people that are like newer to it and they see the prices, because I think there's a lot of people that they're not blob lifters, and I don't think they're vintage weights collectors. They're like not associated with either group, but they see the blobs and they see the crazy prices, and then they get their hands on the dumbbells and they say, "Oh, I'm going to make some money real quick." And then they start sawing everything up thinking that they're just going to get that $450, $500 sale. And it's like, dude, none of those things should be that expensive. So like I said, I think maybe some demand increase, maybe some from some popularity videos and stuff going out there a little bit, but people just constantly driving the price up a little bit, and then they get a little more rare. People are willing to pay a little more, and then people just keep taking advantage. And like I said, you got people that are, most of the time when people are selling them, I'll tell you this. This will be my statement on it. Probably 99% of the time I've ever seen a Fat Man blob listed or any heavy blob listed for $350 plus dollars. So we're talking like, I can understand if, you know, when I got into Grip, they were all about, if you put it up for auction and let the people decide the price, it would usually run up to $300 or a little over. So that's kind of what the price is. If that's what all the people are bidding, that's kind of what the price is, you know. But for you to list it as that without the auction or the people saying that's the price, and you just say, "Oh, this is $450," I don't know that that's accurate. So for those kind of people, when it's not an auction and they labeled the price at like $450 or $500 for a blob, I can almost guarantee you they've never lifted it. That's pretty much true. 99% of the time. If somebody is selling you a blob for $350 plus dollars, they probably don't know shit about blobs, and they definitely can't lift the one they're selling you, because the guys that lift them and actually know stuff about them, they're not ripping people off like that. So yeah. But why is the price high? People just trying to cash out. And like I said, what are you going to do with that? Gas money for the week? You know, you're gonna go out to a restaurant, get you, you and somebody else dinner for $60, gas for the week. Okay, there's your extra money you made off that blob. Like, these people act like they're going to retire off of it or something. Like, oh, I can't, I'm going to hold out and sell this blob for $500. Like, for what? What are you going to do? What are you going to do with that $150? But it's their property. It's their right to sell it for whatever they want. But I'm just being critical of it. Like, just want them to know that their prices are kind of stupid. And like I said, usually it's somebody that can't lift it. So that's why they're listing it that way. They just want money.
Yeah, I totally agree, Zach. Well, we have we hit the 2 hour mark. I am really having fun. I don't know if you, how are you
I'm good.
with time? Are you good?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good for whatever. I know there's probably some questions that people got or something crazy, but yeah, or if you got more subjects you want to cover, it's the weekend. I'm free today, man. So we'll do whatever.
To switch the subject, I wanted to know if you had any question for me to switch the spots.
Yeah, let me think. Can you pick that up on your end or no? Maybe not. Never mind. Don't even worry about it. Okay. I just had one of my dogs was just howling extremely loud, but you probably can't even hear it on your end.
I couldn't hear it.
I shouldn't even have brought it up, but it was like loud to me. So, but yeah, questions for you. Yeah, I guess because we both do shows, right? We're doing one now. What would your future plans be for Gripsport Latino? Do you plan to maybe branch out beyond interviews? I know you have broken it into seasons, which is something that people have never done before, like actually naming it a season and kind of having the stuff like that. And I think that, I think when you like have, I'll say famous in the grip world, but like when you have like all the famous lifters do like promos for like your like commercials for your upcoming season, I think that's a genius idea. I think that's super cool. So do you have anything else that may be, as Gripsport Latino being your project, do you have anything that you're going to add to that or evolve beyond doing the interviews?
Well,
Any
uh,
thoughts?
I wanted to tell you that Gripsport Latino was born because, well, I used to have like my personal profile, Pancho Grip, and I will always post my training stuff like since I've been doing like other sports like since I was a kid, just like you.
Mhm.
And I actually was like, yeah, I have all my friends from Chile which are not like into lifting, and all my friends from abroad, from the US, from Europe, and etc. And I was like, yeah, I want to share this with them, but many of the people from my city and from my country, they don't get what I do, and they actually don't give a shit of the sports that I play. So
Yeah.
I thought maybe I should like do a just grip sport page, and just for
Hmm.
me. And maybe we spoke about this before, but there is an organization called Arm Lifting Chile.
Hmm.
So I couldn't call my thing arm lifting. I didn't want to though, but I wanted to call it grip sport because I used to think, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but I used to think that grip sport covered everything. Like if there's a big circle, there's a small circle called arm lifting. That used to be my way of thinking it of it in 2000, last year, like
Yeah. I mean,
before doing the interviews, you know.
yeah. And that's kind of interesting to see, interesting to see. And you say that, and I would say that would have been accurate probably for that time,
Yes.
because that was one of Arm Lifting USA's big things for like the grip sport comparison was like, hey, we're only going to do you know, the Axle, the Saxon, the Rolling Thunder, maybe a Silver Bullet, maybe a Hub or a Little Bighorn, but it's like these core lifts. We're not going to throw new lifts out there every other competition because then it's impossible to track and blah blah blah. And then it's like fast forward a couple years and what's the scene look like right now?
Yes, that's it.
It's like it's almost flipped right now, in my opinion. In my opinion, yeah,
Yes.
grip sport covers all the stuff like you're saying, but like Arm Lifting USA went from doing like these core events that were tracked, and that was kind of like their knock on GSI was, oh well, they're contesting 27 things, so how do you know if you're getting better at it? Because it's a new thing every competition, and it's like there's so much mixture, and now it's like uh plastic block, one hand fat grip, switching the axle bar, multiple Saxon bars, raw steel and painted can be used from 3 different brands. Changing the hilt to the grandfather clock, but it's the same thing. It's like, and none of that gets tracked. So it's like the same knock that Arm Lifting USA had on Grip Sport for years was there was too many things to really count your progress. Now it's like it's the same deal. And then with Grip Sport, with maybe the newer crop of people coming up, like me, Ben, and some of the other events, like a lot of the events at nationals, heavy hands are the things we're talking about. They are going to be a little more standardized, and they're not going to be as like wacky and crazy as maybe people tried making them in the past. So I think that's kind of switched over the years. So I think your assessment's right on that. Grip Sport does kind of cover everything still, and arm lifting did have a small portion that they kind of specialized in because they
Yes.
didn't want it to be like oversaturated. And then 2-3 years later, it's like they got 20 different lifts they ain't tracking. So whatever, you know.
Exactly. So also in my mind, I used to be really into the Dini lift. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
already did like the 700 and I don't know how many pounds, but I did 345, I think, like 2 years ago, maybe. And it was like, yeah, I'm good to go any day. Now I have to buy the plane tickets to Scotland and do it. And I thought like, yeah, this could be like considered like a grip fit or a grip sport as well. So when people ask me, hey, what's the sport that you do? Well, it's grip sport, and
Mm-hmm.
it contains like GSI, it contains like Genie lift because I like them. I also used to like tearing the deck of cards because I was watching all the posts on the internet, and I always was like curious because could I do it? or is it hard or not? And I tried it
Hmm.
for a while. I know that I can do it, so it's okay. And I wanted to be different to arm lifting Chile, as I told you.
Hmm.
So I made my page. Then people started to notice that I did this, and this was like Latino. So it was not just Chile, because I wanted to cover like all the Spanish speaking community. So
Hmm.
South America, maybe Spain, and so on, maybe Mexico as well. And
Yeah.
then I met I for sure you know Tiziano Vecchio from Italy, the
Yeah, a
grouper
little
guy.
bit. I mean, I think I maybe messaged with him a couple times. I don't know him personally, but yeah, I know of him a little bit. Yeah.
Well, we started speaking like a year ago, and we became really good friends. We always text each other, and someday he told me like, "Hey, let's do a video chat," and I was like, "Oh
Hmm.
yeah, okay." And we were speaking like 1 hour. It was really smooth, really good. And I
Hmm.
told him like, "Hey, what if we do a live interview, like just messing around?" And
Hmm.
we did one live, and it went really well. People didn't understand one single word of what we were saying because it was in
Yeah.
Spanish. But many guys messaged me like, "Oh, I really loved your podcast," and I was like, "This is not a podcast, but well." And then I
Yeah.
kind of like it, and I was like, "Man, maybe I could do it again." And it
Hmm.
that was back when I went to the US last year, so I
Hmm.
already met Tim Butler in person. We have been messaging like back and forth like for years. So it was like, "Hey Tim, would you like to come to my podcast?" And he was like, "Oh, I am like not really into it, but you're a friend, so let's do it." And
Yeah.
it became a podcast, as you can see. I don't call it a podcast because I am not on Spotify, and I don't know. It's like I always thought about doing it, but I was thinking that I will keep it like a thing that you have to watch on video and not on Spotify because, well, let's say it. I speak in
Yeah.
English, but I am not like if I were born in the US. So it is kind of, you understand. It's not like
Well,
something
and
that you can.
especially if you're trying to like, you know, you're you're also trying to appeal and promote this sport to a lot of people that um aren't necessarily fluent in English,
Exactly. Yes.
so if you throw it up on Spotify for like an all English audience or something, or all American audience, it's like I don't know, it's because like you're recording a lot of these in English and you might be able to do the subtitles, which is great
Yes.
if you have video, but in an audio only thing, it's like they can't really convert that. So it makes sense why you would keep it in like a video, in a video
Exactly.
style.
And
Yeah.
touching what you just said, I have like my heart divided because I want to be one of you. Like I want to be
Um,
seen by the US community. Like,
oh
oh,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is this is this guy in the south of the world, and he has blobs, he has like grippers, he's doing our stuff, and this is possible like in a country that maybe I have never heard of, and we are
yeah.
enjoying the sports as much as you, and at the same time I want to bring this like this grip sport message to Chile and to Latin America. So I was like, oh, what do I do? But in the meantime, I was like, I have to do something, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
Now,
uh,
people have been watching, man, and taking notice. Like I said, I watched your episodes before I ever even entertained doing my own. So, yeah, I mean, you say like, I don't know if your comment right there was like kind of like, that's kind of like how you wanted to be seen, or like, I mean, you've already interviewed like Tim Butler, Carl, Jed, like you've interviewed some of the best grip people in the U.S. So yeah, man, people notice your hard work and what you've been doing. So yeah, for something that just started off as kind of like messing around and doing a live video or something. Nah, people have taken notice. Like I said, myself included. You've been doing awesome. So I would just stick with it. I was just curious if you were ever like
no,
thinking of like something different or
I mean,
yeah.
my idea was to like the in the rest of the world see that we can lift too, and we can be like as
Mhm.
strong as you guys. That was like the main
Mhm.
idea, not like, oh, I have been doing a hard work. No, not like that, because I
Yeah, yeah.
enjoy doing this. So to go to the going to the question, well, I may say that that I want like three branches because I
Hmm.
still like to do interviews, and I also like your show and respect your show. I don't want to like, well, in example, your show is on Spotify. Your show has like a his merchandising store, and you do like the recaps. And your proposal, your original proposal, is to not just do interviews.
Hmm.
So I felt like, well, if now I say, oh, I am not just interviews, it's like copying Zach,
No,
and it,
no,
it,
I
it,
get it.
it's like it's like,
Yeah,
man, I respect Zach and his work is really good. I am a
no,
huge
I
fan of
got you.
your work, and I don't want to like just do the same as you just because you did it, and
Yeah.
you have your space and I have my space as well, and
No,
uh,
that's fine. And if you did ever like do recaps or get competitions running down there, I would never be like, oh, this dude's copying me or something. You know,
yeah,
I
but
don't have any, I don't have any ownership of, you know, who can record what or whatever. But I get what you mean. I totally get what you're saying. But yeah, man, I wouldn't take it like that ever. I would say, you know, whatever builds the sport, whatever's the best for you, and whatever gets the message to the most people. And yeah, do that, you know, and it ain't got nothing to do with what I'm doing. You know, yeah, you're good.
sure. But the thing is that I got like caught up with the momentum because after the first season, I said like, yeah, I should take a break because I was about to get married and we
Hmm.
have a lot of stuff going at home. So it was like, yeah, I
Hmm.
should take a break. But then I asked my coach Sam, hey Sam, may I interview you? Yes, let's do it tomorrow. And I was like, fuck, I won't have my break, but I am enjoying it. And then every other weekend was like episode, episode, episode.
Yeah.
So I went like really tired of it. There was like one time that I wasn't enjoying it so much, and also I was super English based program.
Hmm.
Considering that I am Latino and not Gripsport US,
Yeah.
so I am like in debt with my country and with my Latino people. So the second branch will be doing events, doing Gripsport meets. I have done two
Hmm.
so far, and I want to do three. I want to bring the blobs. I want to bring the grippers. People are really crazy about grippers here in Latin America. So I am also like doing these training sessions. I want to do my first contest. It is going to be called Grips for Latino Classic
Hmm.
because I want to bring a couple of classics back. I mean,
Okay.
some things are classic and some other things are really hot these days, like the Napalm's Nightmare. I have the flask, so I throw the flask as well. And the third branch will be equipment building. I have built 50 millimeter blocks. I
Okay.
have all the prime matter for loading pins, and I am selling some rolling handles and as well. So those are like
Okay.
that's the future, and I
Yeah. And
want
see,
to
that's all
do.
stuff that like, that's totally different than me though. So like that would be a whole different lane that you're creating. So yeah, that's like 100% cool. So
Yeah,
real good.
so that will be my like my future goals, and I have like a couple of people that I want to interview, especially guys from like from other countries, because I always wanted to be like, I want to be the one that picks people from all over the world, because this is an opinion. I actually feel that Gripsport is super big in the US,
Mhm.
is super developed, and there are many states like having contests, having venues. GSI and Armlifting USA are both the two big federations, so to speak,
Yeah.
and they are all in the US. But I wanted to cover the other countries, like what is happening out there, and
Yeah.
I love you to cover that as well, of course.
If yeah,
But
if there's a time where I get information or you know talk to somebody or I have a foreign guest on and there's competitions or maybe a US person that's traveling to these foreign venues that can give us
yes,
a recap, I'm not opposed to covering that. It's just that it's been a little time consuming with the show and trying to work in
Of
all the
course.
stuff I've been doing. So to like, it's hard enough to almost cover what's going on in the US. So there may be a time where I cover specific things outside, but
Yes.
for now it's like I kind of got my hands full for a little while and this is still kind of new to me. So yeah, at some point maybe, but I totally get what you mean with kind of covering, all the stuff. And and like I said, it's tough to cover those because like you could do like a King Kong results deal
Yes.
or arm lifting super series, but like I said, it's multi-venue. It would
Yes.
be different if you cover like an in-person event like the Bone Hill grip competition in Finland and you covered like, you know, an actual single venue event that was overseas. That would be a little different.
Exactly.
Whereas like
And
these competitions get called international things, but it's like
yes.
no one really travels. They just lift in their own place. So it's like kind of international. And if you cover it, you're still not really like covering an event that was over there. There's just lifter. Yeah, you get what I mean.
Yes, and I know that what you're doing is it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of creative work, and I don't know, thinking about the questions and reaching out people. I know it's a lot of work, so keep doing what you're doing because I really like it, and
Okay. Yeah. No, like I said,
that's
same
pretty
thing to
much
you.
it. Yes, so that's my plan. I don't think I may do a like uh, covering any tournaments yet. But what I
Yeah.
want to do is, I don't know if you knew, but the first like team or federation of Gripsport in Latin America is from Uruguay, and they are called
So yeah.
Arm Lifting Uruguay. They are really fans of like the British style of competitions with the staff, with the half penny, and they are really fans of Ironman. They have built their own thing because they
Yeah.
like the Rolling Thunder, they have Saxon bars, they like it,
Hmm.
and they have many Finnish ball variations. And well, they are super like nice guys. They are not really into like knowing the people from the other countries, meaning
Yeah.
US or Europe. The founder of them have met like Odd Hagen, I think, like in a mass wrestling event, and
Hmm.
he has also met the guy from Silarukov in Russia. But I want to interview him and know a bit of his history and to support each other here in Latin America. So that's pretty much it. That's what I like to do with Grips for Latino, like in the next year
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah. No, like I said, and I think everybody will be looking forward to that too. So I'll be tuning in.
So Zach, is there anything else that you'd like to ask? Anything funny, whatever you like?
Ah,
Before
man, do you have
before we jump into the questions from the audience.
yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I gotta buy some time. The questions from the audience might get me. I don't know any of them. So it's not like I got sent the questions first. I'm just getting blasted from the audience. So no, you asked me about my goals. Do you have any kind of feats you're working on right now? Like any, not necessarily like, oh, I want to lift this on a rolling handle, like not like a lift or anything, but do you have like a feat, like a plate pinch, maybe a gripper goal, um, maybe a feat with your blob, like cleaning it or trying to snatch it, maybe the new blob you just got, that 110 legacy, like, do you have any feats that you're like most excited about?
Well, the first like classic feat that I must
Mhm.
I have it right here, but I can't touch it yet, is to lift an actually inch dumbbell. That's
Okay.
the first thing that
Yeah.
I'd like to do. In example, if I make it to heavy hands next year, I'd love to try the inch dumbbell and prepare myself to do that. That's the first thing. And something that I want to do like this afternoon after we finish our episode, I want to try the half 110. I don't know
Mhm.
how will I do, but I want to try it and I want to lift it. If I don't do it, I will ask Sam. Hey Sam, I want to do it. Let's focus the this workout like this month to lift that blob, something
Mhm.
like that. And since my training has been really focused on grippers this year, the heaviest one I closed like really deep set, it has been like
Mhm.
a heavy grip rated 174 pounds. from Canon
Yeah.
PowerWorks.
Okay.
So after I never buy a gripper that I don't know if I ever going to close. In example, the first rated gripper that I bought, it was a number 3, rated 152, and
Me
it
too.
was it. and, and,
First,
and
first number three I ever got is a 152.
yes, and
Dead on.
that gripper was like sitting in my drawer like for our let me see, mm, 4 years. 4 years without closing it. I could do like silver bullet and stuff, but doesn't
Mhm.
matter. I don't really like silver bullet, so I couldn't close it for 4 years. And for that amount of money, because it's really expensive to bring grip stuff here to Chile, I don't know. I could have like another rolling handle, another pinch block. I don't know. It would have been like more useful. So what I do is, if I close the 152, well, I am going to now buy a 160 and so on.
Mhm.
So my next goal in Gripper is to close my 3.5, which is rated 178. So that
Okay.
with
That would be a good one.
grippers, yes, I hope to hit it like maybe this year, but not in a rush. I am really enjoying it. And as a promoter, I would love to run my contest and to have like an epic venue where things are truthful, not bracing and not like ego lifters doing the shit like the wrong way just because
Mhm.
they want to lift more than X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z lifter, and to be stronger and to keep training and be prepared for when I get the opportunity to go to the US or to another country to compete
Mhm.
and to bring the sport like to develop the sport. I want more people in Chile trying it. I want more people in Chile to be like really excited about it, be really into like have their equipment. I'm not talking about like having 5 handles and 20 pinch blocks, just the basic stuff. Enjoy
Mhm.
the sport, being into it, and to have fun. That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's jump into questions from the audience. My initial intention was to pick all of your guests and that all of your guests made a question for you. I
Ah,
could
that'd be cool.
I couldn't make it with all of them because matters of time, or maybe they were busy. I don't know, but most of them did really good questions. So let's start with
Yeah.
Tammy McClure.
Okay.
He wanted to know, how does grip strength help in martial arts?
I mean,
Pretty general question.
yeah. So especially for like grappling, I mean, you could say for like even in striking, I mean, I would say that, I mean, obviously most of the power is generated from your body when you're striking and all that stuff, and it's more dynamic. But like if you, even if your hand is stronger, it's not as likely to, having a stronger hand, you're going to protect it from injury, breaking your wrist, breaking the stronger everything is, the less likely to injure yourself you are, especially like striking and stuff. Now, if you're grappling, yeah, I mean, just being able to grab on and hook onto people and lock onto stuff, you know what I mean? It's just going to help you have a stronger, tighter grip, more control of people, more control of different positions. And it's going to allow you to be able to hold those positions longer, have more endurance, you know, just down that lane. That's pretty much the answer for that. Just more control of the positions, stronger holds, and like I said, that's a good thing. So
So now there are a couple of more like relaxed questions.
oh,
This is from Tammy as well. She wants to know, is Zach excited to become a daddy? And what kind of dad dates does Zach and Ben have planned?
okay. Um, yeah, because Ben, I mean, Ben just recently had a son. So yeah, not too long ago. So yeah, no, I'm excited. So I don't know what else, what to say about it now, as far as like dad dates. I don't know if that's a term I would use in my daily life. So maybe Tammy's just trying to mess with me or something. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, right now it's just a matter of kind of getting up through the rest of the pregnancy stuff, and then just you know, having the baby, and then probably whatever craziness Ben has had to deal with the last couple months, or the last month or so. I can
Yeah.
pretty much join him in that and kind of suffer a little bit, because I'm probably going to lose some sleep or whatever the case may be. So, and I'm sure at some point, yeah, maybe me and Ben will meet up or something and have the kids around or something, whatever. But yeah, I don't have any like dad dates set up or nothing like that. But I have been getting warned by Ben as to like what to expect and what to get ready for. So that's pretty much it on that.
There's a question from one of your greatest guests,
Oh,
Charles Strange. This one surprised me, Zach, in a good way. How he got to be in a Dayton Family music video. I saw the video yesterday, and you were like with your signature pose, like this.
oh, okay. Um, man, that's a funny story. God, that's a good one. Now technically it wasn't a Dayton family video, but it was with one of the members of the Dayton family. Now, the Dayton family is a rap group that went like gold and platinum back in the 90s. Um, Real hardcore rap from probably like 92 to 97 is probably when they were most known, that time frame. They put out stuff since, but yeah, and this was an older job I was doing, but I had a friend I worked with, and it was just one of, like, I guess you could say, like one of the cooler people at work. So I was talking to him, and I listened to all kinds of music. So I listened to everything from like the oldest country to the heaviest metal to like the most hardcore rap, like all extremes, way out there. Um, so a lot of people don't think, they don't think instantly that I would know a lot about rap music or something, but I do. And I was messing around with them. Some of the people I worked with, whatever, they were playing a song on their phone or something. And I was like making fun of it, like, oh, who's that rapping, whatever. And the dude I was friends with, he's like, that's me. And I'm like, shut up. Like, that's not you rapping, you know? And he's like, no, it's actually me. Like, I make music. And I'm like, you don't make music, dude, whatever. Like, you don't even know it. Yeah. So he's like, I'll bring in my stuff. So my friend, he brought in like these mixtapes he had and all of his stuff. And I said, hey man, I'll give it a listen. And I listened to it, and he's very technically good at rap, but it wasn't the style of music that I typically liked, but I could appreciate the skill. Um, so it just got to the point where like once I realized that he was actually like good at it, and I had like a deep knowledge base, I was like, I don't know, we just kept talking more and more about music. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I don't want to say like I was like his manager, but I kind of would like help him out with like getting features on his albums or the album artwork or putting his stuff out on different platforms. So I kind of was like in a manager role. And one of those things was like, hey, I mean, since I was like sixth grade or seventh grade, middle school, I was listening to the Dayton Family. So that's like one of my favorite rap groups. And I just reached out to one of the members of the Dayton Family, um, as basically like his manager, and worked out a feature with them, got them to do a song together. And then we went up and shot the music video and hung out for a couple days. And that's how I ended up in the video. But it's because I had a friend that rapped, and basically we just had like, I don't know, like stars kind of aligned, and we just made the video happen. And I went from being like a little, sixth grader, seventh grader listening to this music to like almost about 16, 17 years later, like, hanging out with one of the artists and like actually, getting to meet them in person and know them personally. So funny question from him. Yeah.
Perfect.
that might be my one record I have in grip is I'm the only person in Gripsport that has been in a Dayton family related music video. So
Excellent.
yeah, I'll take it.
Now I have three questions from your first guest, Joe
Mm.
Hodgson, the one and only.
Oh man.
The first one, Zach, you are a natural podcaster, very easy to listen and have great content. When you began the Grip Show, did you ever think it would be so successful?
Man, it's kind of the same thing as Heavy Hands. We were just going to start a competition and we didn't expect to get that kind of positive feedback. And the Grip Show's been kind of the same way. I didn't know if it was going to be like a couple garbage episodes and like 10 views on each video and no one cared. I didn't know if it was, I wasn't expecting much. So I will say with kind of maybe low expectations going, I'll put it this way. I had low expectations for it because I can't control other people, but I knew that I wasn't going to take shortcuts and I was going to put effort into it. So I knew that I would put effort into it and try to make it as good as I could with my limited knowledge of technology and what I can do. But yeah, I knew I couldn't control other people's response, and I think the response that I've been getting so far has been a little shocking, like Heavy Hands. It's been a little more positive, a little more attention than I thought, and yeah, I didn't anticipate that or predict it, but I'm glad people are liking it, and like I said, I have no intentions of slowing down with anything, so the content's going to keep rolling out and kind of evolving and stuff like that. But yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I just kind of set the bar low, but knew that I was going to put like top effort into it and just hope for the best. So yeah, it's better than I thought. So
Perfect. The second from Joe. He says, Blob Zombie is a great play on words, but but the name is also symbolic of the lull you feel you have faced in life. Your strength continues to rise, and although your feats are already impressive, what unnatural goals do you wish to unleash upon us when the zombie has fully risen?
okay, so basically like lifetime feats.
Sure.
That is, I don't know if that's what if that's what he's kind of getting at is maybe like what like if I reach full form, what's like my peak? What's the biggest stuff I'm going to do? It might have been the stuff I named earlier in the show. I hate to kind of cop out, but it might be pinching 255s. It might be um lifting that 209-pound Thomas Inch dumbbell, and it might be Blobzilla. I will say I got another one up my sleeve. I might break out for people that they might not expect. Um, I don't know. Should I reveal it or not?
It's up to you, but I guess it's going to be like closing the number four. No, just kidding.
I gotta, I, I
or
gotta, I
or
gotta,
is
I gotta
it?
close the number. I gotta close the number three first. I mean, I can close some threes, but I can't just walk up and close any three. I'm not that good at grippers. Um, but no, I'll put it this way. Um, me, Joe, and Ben. So Joe Hodgson and Ben Helms, we've had like not like debates, but just training discussions as like grip friends or whatever you want to say. We're like Joe. I mean, we're all strong at the lifts we do, but we all have a little bit of a different style of how we lift them or different priorities. So like Joe might be pulling monstrous reps on that Millennium Hall bell of his, where he's tilting the bell and he's focused on pulling like the biggest tilt lift, but then he's still hitting his level lifts and other stuff too. Um, Ben was doing a lot of tilt lifting because he would like use the tilt for that momentum because he was so focused on the inch cleans. So there was a period in time where Ben was kind of tilt heavy. Joe was going at the 104, so he was a little tilt heavy. And all these guys are still training their level lifts too. I was kind of like the opposite, where like I'm not really tilting stuff and I'm just level lifting it. So the one thing I've noticed in training recently, and I've kind of been encouraged by Ben to do it, is my level lifts are strong with my right hand on the inch bell. And I've been I've been pulling my 172 pretty high level, and I actually might be able to clean the inch dumbbell. I'm not saying it'll be soon, but but like level lift. So I'm not like tilting it with the swing. I'm talking about like if you see like how like Mark Henry just pulls it straight,
Yes.
like off the floor, or like Lane Snook would pull it straight off the floor. That style works better for me. I know that technically the tilt and the momentum is probably more efficient, or it's probably technically better for someone of my body weight and my hand size. That would probably be I don't want to say easier path, but the more logical path. But from what I feel in my training and what I do, my level lifts with my right hand are so strong right now that when I do get a chance to get on those dumbbells, um, I think I could get the inch dumbbell up high enough. It'd just be a matter of kind of getting under it. And, but yeah, so that might be one that I haven't mentioned. I did mention the Pension 255s, the Blobzilla, the 209-pound inch bell, but I might, if I continue to gain strength and do the training like I have been, one of these days when I high pull the inch, I might try to get underneath of it, and it would be like a level clean, because I don't know that I'd have to spend probably more time tilting it and practicing the swing. It'd probably take me more time to master that than it would just be stronger at level lifting it and pulling it straight. So I might just try to straight pull the inch dumbbell for a clean. But like I said, no promises. I got other bells I got to clean before that, but a couple times I've done some high pulls with the 172, and I can like get it up like, pec and shoulder level. And it's like, all you got to do, if you just get the coordination right and drop under it, it might be there. So, like I said, I'm kind of being encouraged by Ben to do that one. So to answer Joe's question, I guess if I emerge into the full zombie mode and I hit those other ones, I might add cleaning the inch dumbbell into that mix, and it would be at a pretty light body weight because I weigh like 212 right now. So, yeah. And I would do it level too. Not that I take anything away from the tilt cleans or tilt lifting it. A clean is a clean, a lift is a lift. I'm cool with all forms of it. I'm just saying for my style and my preference, I think the level strict lift clean, I feel like that's a more powerful position for me. I don't think it's like, oh, if I do it that way, it's going to be better than Ben's cleans or whatever. I don't think that. I just think that would be the best way for me to approach that lift. And it's not like comparing it to anybody else. It's just what I feel when I pick the bell up. So, yeah.
Perfect. The third question from Joe, it's about dumbbells as well. He says, Zach, congratulations on your recent full level lift on the Selene 200-pound inch dumbbell.
Mm-hmm.
This is a hugely difficult feat that only a handful of people have achieved. Please tell us how much work it took to achieve this, and also how does this bell compare to other dumbbells you own, like the Holy dumbbells?
Okay. So really, how much work went into that? Obviously you could say, from the beginning of me training the inch has led to that. So we could say, over the course of 2.5 years, I've been building up to that. If we go by when it showed up to my house and how long it took me to lift it, just that period of time, it's a little bit shorter, but like I said, I've already developed a good baseline of strength prior to getting the dumbbell. The thing that helped me the most with that dumbbell is my 190 or 191 pound Hall dumbbell. The handle is like a quarter of an inch longer. It's just a little bit longer. So when you're trying to pull like a stricter level lift, my hands aren't like super wide. So I can't really get any contact with the bells. So some people will kind of like, they'll tilt because they can get friction and it stops one of the globes from turning, and, or there's guys that like on an inch dumbbell with a 4-inch handle, their hands are so thick or fat, they can like wedge it in and they actually get contact with both globes. So that friction kind of like binds up on their hand and they're not fighting as much of the roll. I got fairly skinny hands that go right in the middle. And if I'm in the center of the handle, there's going to be a little gap in the front and a little gap in the back. And I'm fighting the spin on both those bells usually if I'm doing a level lift. So with that Hall dumbbell weighing about 191 pounds and having that slightly, just that extra length in it, it was harder for me to balance and get to level lift it finally. So I think that training for that and pulling off a couple successful lifts with it really prepped me for the Selene 200, because once I got that 200, which really came in a little light at like 195, but once I got that Selene 200, the handle is a traditional 4 inches, like the inch dumbbell is. So I felt like the balance of it fit my hand better, even though it was a little heavier than the Hall dumbbell. So I would rank both those dumbbells about equally as hard to lift. The Selene might be slightly harder to lift, but they're right around the same, but it's for different reasons. Like the Selene bell has like a better feeling handle, but it weighs more. The Hall bell has a slightly awkward handle, but it weighs less. So like they each have their own little variables that differ, but to pick either one of them up is not an everyday task for me, and it's pretty hard. And I would give the Selene like maybe the slight edge in difficulty, but both those bells are about equally difficult. And yeah, I mean, it took a ton of training just to get to lift the inch, and then it took a ton of training above that to even entertain picking up those bells. And then my left hand still hasn't picked up bells that heavy. So my left hand's playing catch up. The biggest bell my left hand is lifted is 180-pound inch. So it might be about 10 or 15 pounds off of what my right is for that style.
Perfect. Now I have a question from Tim Butler. It's kind of a similar question to the previous one because it's dumbbell related as well. Tim wants to know, what's your approach for training to lift inch dumbbells beyond the standard 78-kilogram size?
Like, what's my training methods for it?
Sure, your approach for training above the classic inch.
If you're training with the actual inch and you want to lift bigger bells, like things that I would do is like add weight to it. So I would balance things on top of it so that I was, really stopping the rotation. So whether it's doing like the can lifts, balancing fat grips on top of it, adding 2.5 or 5 pound plates on top of the inch, putting magnets on the thumb side to make it spin harder to your thumb, things like that you can take the regular inch dumbbell and add weight to it, make it spin harder to your thumb, which is the weakness. And that's really how I approached, training for those bigger bells. Or I would approach the bigger bells the opposite direction. I would put some magnets on the finger side so it would slow the rotation down, but actually end up being heavier, and my hand would still support that weight or even greater weight. It just wasn't quite as much spin. So I kind of find a happy medium between increasing the spin on the inch or decreasing the spin on the bigger bells, or just playing with those different combinations of magnets and different ways to load the lift. And that's really what I guess probably helped me the most when it comes to lifting anything above the inch dumbbell, is finding ways to make the inch harder to lift, and then finding ways to make the, kind of deloading those heavier bells, and then slowly just, maybe you start with more magnets on the finger side and then slowly you chip away until you're pulling full lifts on it or something. So like any progression, you kind of start with one thing and then just, dial it in. But all those methods. Yeah.
No, we keep on the like on the same coast that you live, like it's the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
We are still on the East Coast, and now we go to your previous state, Ohio. I have 3 questions from Mike Saffel. The first one,
okay.
The first one, it's it's kind of funny one. Mike wants to know, how does it make him feel to get beat on a rolling handle by someone that can't lift the inch dumbbell?
It happens. Yeah. It's funny, man. I don't know. Yeah. Like how does it feel? I mean, yeah, I know he's messing around, but like it could just come down to Mike has spent more time on rolling handles than me, and I've spent more time on dumbbells, and maybe our specialization of training is just kind of prepared us slightly different. So maybe there's something about the pull height of a rolling handle and the way it's hitting my hand that he's just used to doing for however many years. And then maybe I'm used to just like having the leverage and pulling directly off the floor with the dumbbells. And it's just, there's carryover to the rolling handles, but maybe I need to spend more time on rolling handles. But no, it's all good. Yeah. My goal was to go to EOGC and try to hang tough with Mike, and he got me. So it is what it is. But yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. Like I said, I've been outlifted on so many different events, so many things, but I just still show up. And yeah, if anybody, I'll put it this way, if anybody outlifts me on something, they earned it. So
That's
hats
good.
off to them.
The second from Mike. I'd like to hear more about his story in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, okay. Well, I never really started like some guys will like have like a wrestling background and then they get into MMA and then they have to learn the striking, or some people box and then they have to like learn the ground game. So you have to understand that when I first got into MMA around 2009, I started as like strictly MMA. So like it wasn't like I was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu or I started jiu-jitsu and then I had to learn striking. So I didn't like have like one discipline that I was like specializing in and then got to MMA. So I started with MMA. So my jiu-jitsu was always based around, or still is based around, a fight. So, story of, I mean, I've competed in jiu-jitsu. I did one judo tournament back in like 2011, but I wasn't the biggest fan. And my judo's not that great, but I did like one judo tournament, but I've done a ton of grappling tournaments over the years. Up till I'm trying to think, the last competition I did was a submission only event. I just signed up on a whim. I wasn't even training for it. Which before doing a submission only, for those that don't know, a lot of grappling competitions, there's like a time limit, like 6 to 8 minutes, and it goes to points at the end of it. Some submission only settings, when you do a submission only, it means the match just goes until someone submits. So you can get some like really grueling, stupid long matches. So to not train for that and then just show up to do 2 divisions for that, that was a rough day for me. I did well. I took a first and a second place in that. That was my last competition I did on the grappling side. But yeah, I mean, as far as my jiu-jitsu, it's always been based around the fight. It's always been based around MMA. So I never I still would compete in just jiu-jitsu or just that discipline, but I never put more emphasis on jiu-jitsu or being one-dimensional. It's been a full package for me as a fighter. So like jiu-jitsu is just a part of what I do. If I could say like, oh, well, Zach, where do you rank in that? I've been competing in no-gi jiu-jitsu, like in the advanced division, which is like purple to black belt, since about 2015, 2016. And I mean, I don't know, over the last, like I said, I haven't competed really the last year and a half or 2 years. But prior to that, I mean, I've submitted a decent amount of like brown belt and purple belts in competition and shit like that. So, I mean, I can grapple. It's just not like the only thing I do. It's just one piece of the whole game. But yeah, I could pretty much go most places and probably hang with really any purple or brown belt. Black belt starts getting a little tricky, but if I can punch them and we're doing striking, then that changes the whole aspect of the game too. So yeah, I've just always been a fighter first above all else. And if I were to like put where my grappling level's at, more like probably a purple belt or a brown belt, but with 14 years of like striking on top of it. So I put more emphasis on the full fight, not just that. But like I've done like side stuff too, where like I've done tons of grappling competitions. I've had MMA fights. I was a combatives instructor in the Army for a couple years. I had some fights doing that that like weren't sanctioned. So like you can't even look those up. They're not on any record, but like I fought when I was in the military. And then like I did a boxing match in West Virginia one time. So that was just boxing. So I've kind of dabbled in like all these different combat sports. But to kind of give him the rundown on the jiu-jitsu side, that's a little bit of history. Yeah, I've competed over the years in jiu-jitsu, and uh yeah, I mean, like I said, I've beat up some higher, like some high level belts in like MMA fights. Like my third opponent was a really good purple belt at the time back in 2012, and he had some pretty good submissions. I think he's a black belt now. He wasn't then, but I mean, I won that fight pretty easily. In the military, there was a real good black belt, or he was like a purple belt back then, but we were in the combatives instructor course for the Army, and we had to like fight each other at the end of the course, like pancrase rules or like mixed fighting rules, and it was for like honor graduate for the course. And he was a well-established purple belt and super cool guy. We trained, those whole 2 months together. We were training together. Then we had to fight each other at the end of the course, and I ended up winning that match, and kind of took it to him pretty good, and actually ended up submitting him. That guy's gone on to open his own academy. He's a high level black belt. He has his own academy down in Texas and stuff like that. So, I mean, if it's a fight, my jiu-jitsu is a lot better. If it's just strictly grappling, purple belt, brown belt. I've submitted plenty of them in competition, but it's not as fun for me, just grappling only. I kind of like mixing everything, or I'm better when I mix everything because I started as a mixed martial artist, and that's what I always kind of put priority on. But yeah, so hopefully that helps.
That's perfect. The next question comes from I'm going to give you like a clue. They call him Napalm, Jet Johnson. He wants to know.
Hold on, who is that?
Are you?
I'm just messing with you. I've never heard of that guy.
I remember when I interviewed Jet, I told him, "Yeah, I have this question from Chas," and he told me, "Who? And he was like,
"Yeah,
this guy's messing around with me."
yeah. No, I know who Napalm is. Okay, let's see what Jet's got.
Everybody knows. Zach, what do you think we need to do to get more women competing at nationals?
I think honestly, for what it's worth, I think it's just personal interaction with people, man. And that can be hard because we're all spread out and we all live so far apart. But like getting to kind of know Tammy just from the interview process and kind of talking to her a little bit, like makes it easier to where like, oh, like there's some like reason for us to kind of like talk, or for you to possibly do a competition, or if you hosted a competition, maybe it's just communicating with the people in our sport. But like I said, when we all live in different places and we don't know each other, it can be hard for somebody like, not that it necessarily matters too much, but like for me being like some random dude in North Carolina right now, it's hard for me to like reach out to some random lady in Idaho and be like, hey, you want to come to this grip competition? It's like, who is this? I don't even know you. So like, I think the biggest thing is like kind of establishing some kind of communication with people and just getting to know people socially, to where everybody kind of knows each other and feels comfortable or confident in competing. So, like as of recent, two of your former guests and, one guest I've interviewed, but like talking to like Tammy McClure or Sarah Chapello, like getting to kind of know them a little bit here the last, just the last year or so competing, or seeing them lift, or talking to them, or people just messaging a little more, stuff like that. I think that just the more conversation, or the more reason there is to conversate with maybe outside lifters that happen to be women, I think that would increase participation. It's hard when you're just a random guy and you just, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm not like reaching out to random women in different states like, you should do grip. It doesn't make sense, sure. Right? I'm gonna look like I'm crazy. So like that, yeah, that's like, that'd be weird, they'd be like, who's this dude? Like, why is he messaging me? But like when you actually have like real-time interactions, or you're at competitions with people and you're establishing relationships, at the competition, maybe at these bigger expos, or, that would be the time, I think, to kind of compete with people, travel yourself, build the relationships, whether it be online, maybe doing these interviews, maybe it's through training. And once you kind of have that, then I think people are more apt to travel or take part in competitions you're doing. And I think we might get more participation. But yeah, just broadcasting the sport and having more conversations is probably the best way. I know that's a kind of generic, but yeah, the more competitions I go to, the more women competitors I may run into. That gives me more reason to talk to introduce, or the more the show gets put out, maybe the more women get interviewed, maybe the more women want to compete. There's probably multiple ways that can be accomplished, but it just starts with more competitions, being more inviting, and just probably more conversation. Yeah.
Perfect. Another question from Jet Johnson. Zach, your hands are right about 7 3/4 long, which are
Mhm.
essentially small to average hands, yet you have lifted up to 200-pound challenge bells. Why do you think you have been able to go so far above and beyond what will normally be considered the limitations for smaller handed and average hands people on challenge bells?
Mhm. I'd say the same thing for blobs too. It's just I don't know. I think it's a mentality. I really think it is the mindset. Um, because like I said, just doing those other sports and being through a lot of the stuff I've been through, um, whether that was through like the adversity through football, or different training environments I've been in, or whether that's through the military, or whether that's through fight stuff, there's just a certain level of mentality that, like, when I put my focus on something to get it done, like the inch dumbbell or beyond that, um, it's hard to like deter me away from that. Whereas like someone else might like, man, I tried for a year and I couldn't do it. It's like I'm just showing up the next day with like, I don't know if you want to call me hard headed or what, but like the same stubbornness. Like, yeah, like I didn't lift the red pill for 2 years. Okay, wait till one of these days I'm feeling good and I'm gonna roll it out and try it again. It's just like I don't want to say that it's almost like you don't want to use the word delusional, but I'm not quick to put a ceiling on what can be accomplished and what I'm able to do. So I kind of look at like what other people before me have done, or yeah, I don't know. I look at like what other people before me have done. And I'm like, if that guy can do it, I can do it. Or if there's something that maybe I'm on the edge of doing that no one's done with my hand size or whatever, and there's not really anything I've pulled off maybe that would match that, but let's just say I'm on that verge of maybe doing something that like hardly anybody's done with my hand size. It's like, well, it's because I never even considered that as a reason. All I cared about was lifting the thing. I didn't think about my hand size, and then it's just knowing how to train. It's having the mindset to like just not give up on shit. So it's like I said, something can sit there and not move for 2 years. Some people give up week one. Some people give up month three. Some people give up year two. I guess as long as I'm breathing, I just don't give up. So it's kind of like, yeah, that 209, if it sits out in my garage for 2 more years, I don't care. Like, I'm going to go pick it up 3 years from now. Pinch 55s. Yeah. Okay. Maybe it takes me 2 more years to pinch 55s. Guess what? I'm going to be right there lifting on them 2 years when it happens. It's like, I'm not sitting around, I don't know, letting a couple bad training sessions, or the fact that here's the big one. There's a lot of things I've like, my first intro, like I said, first time I touched the inch dumbbell, I was like, I don't even know if I can lift this or if I'll ever lift it. That's how bad it was. Like, I was like, I don't know if I'll ever lift it. But that didn't stop me from like training it. I still approached it like I was just going to train it like anything else. So I think almost just kind of keeping that, I don't want to say a rookie mindset, because the rookie mindset sometimes can be like, oh, this is too hard, I'm going to quit. But keeping that like rookie enthusiasm, you know, but with kind of a veteran approach. So you got to kind of keep the same enthusiasm as a rookie. Like, hey, this is a new thing. This is cool. I want to lift it. But you got to kind of have that veteran mindset to be like, yeah, but you might not lift it this week and you might not lift it next week. So you got to kind of have a balance of those two things. And I think that's what helps me. But yeah, I'll put it this way. I think I've been through a lot more worse things in life than not being able to pick something up. So when I walk up to shit and I can't lift it, that really doesn't bother me that bad because I've been through a lot worse. So just give me enough time. The only way I'm not going to lift something is if I run out of time or if it's like a Shaw Blob 150 Legacy or something. I'd pick it up with two hands maybe, but you get what I'm saying. But yeah, really, it's like the only thing that's going to defeat me on a feat is just time itself. Because as long as I got the time, I know how to train and I ain't going nowhere. So I'll lift. I'll lift anything. As long as I can get my hands on it and train it long enough. That's how I look at it. So that's what keeps me going. And I think a lot of people don't have that in them, and I think they get distracted and they just they feel the inch dumbbell that first time and they say the same thing I did. I don't know if this is for me. And then they kind of dive off or they lose interest after a year or two or whatever. I just don't ever give up on stuff. So yeah.
Perfect. Now we go to Europe. There's a question from someone from Finland, Mr. Harry Talonen.
Okay.
He wants to know, now that King Kong is here soon, and I can still see a lot of fit style lifts from there, doesn't it mess your recovery? Or how does the training happen for competition? Like your training, he means.
Absolutely, it can mess up recovery. Talking about Joe was talking about my 200-pound Selene bell.
Yeah.
I told you I did like those 3 competitions.
Sure.
Like in back-to-back weeks. The first 2 of those, all I did for training was I tried to lift that bell because it was pissing me off. So I wasn't even training for the events. So maybe that goes back to Mike's question. Maybe Mike outlifted me on that damn rolling handle because I was trying 2 days before the competition in a 8-hour drive. I was trying to pick up that 195 bell. And I was pulling it like, God, I was pulling that dumbbell like 60 to 70% lockout and it would just break my hand open. And I'd break it off the floor like 8 or 10 times. Then it would just get worse. Then I couldn't even hardly like lift it the next day and I'd have to take a day off. And then I'd just come back out and I would be like, okay, I'm sticking to my plan today. And then I'd get warm. I'd get feeling good. And I'd see that bell and I'd roll it out. And I'm like, I'm just going to give it a couple pulls. 30 minutes later, same result. So, I mean, I like fried my arm out. That's not an excuse because I don't know that I would have lifted much more. And Mike beat me fair and square. But for those like competitions, I was still doing feats. I was still trying to knock that feat out going into these competitions. So he's absolutely right when it comes to like being observant about that. Hey, I'm seeing you doing a lot of feats still. Like, when are you going to do the event training? Probably starting now. I don't know when you'll drop this, but probably pretty soon. So I plan to start kind of, doing some King Kong events. I've been doing a couple of things for the Armlifting USA event. So we'll see. But like I said, sometimes the feats get in the way. And that Selene bell was tough for me because I went at it for about 2 weeks straight and couldn't get a lockout on it. And I was doing 2 competitions at the same time. Like, trust me, on days when I was lifting on it, the competition lifts took a back seat and that's what I was focused on. So it's just how it is. That's me being honest. So yeah, I don't have any feats that I'm chasing so hardcore right now because I did get a lift on it. So now I can kind of chill out and it allows me to kind of focus on the competitions. And then once the competitions are done, I said, I'm going to take that break from competing. Then I'll get back to the feats. So yeah, I probably should. I think me and Tim Butler both fall victim to that. We do a lot of competitions, but we also like the feats so much that it's hard to juggle them. And they can definitely affect the other. Too many competitions can affect accomplishing the feat. Putting all your eggs in one basket to accomplish that feat can totally like drain you for a competition and you're not prepared for the specific handles. So yeah, man, that's it. I need to probably have a little more discipline when it comes to knowing when to walk away from a feat. but that's part of the reason I pull feet off eventually is because I don't walk away. So it's hit or miss, man. It just depends.
The second question from Harry. Top 5 men and women overall at King Kong this year. Which is your prediction?
Oh man.
Tough one.
Top 5. I don't even know. I don't even know how to pronounce all the women's names. Um, and I don't know who's competing, so that's the tough part too. I would say, let me see here. I would say Sarah Chapelot would probably fare pretty well. She has a pretty good track record, so I'm going to throw Sarah in the mix. I'm going to throw Tammy in the mix because although Tammy's at a lighter body weight, Tammy still lifts some pretty big stuff and she's strong. So that would be 2 that I kind of am familiar with. I want to say there's another Finland lifter like Marja something, Maarji. Like there, I don't know how to pronounce the name. Do you know it?
Nope.
Okay.
Me neither.
But like, it's like, I almost want to like look it up, but like, I still couldn't pronounce it for you. I need to get better at that, but like, yeah, I just, it's hard sometimes. But yeah, those 3 I would say would probably be up there, but it's tough for me because like I said, we might have new competitors that I don't know. I don't know if they're signed up or not. And then there might be some like foreign women that are new that I've never heard of their name. So I could never I could never pick their name out, but, I apologize for not knowing the lady's name from Finland or how to pronounce it, but it's like Marja something or Marji, like, I don't know, something like that. Most people probably know what I'm talking about, or he probably knows exactly who I'm talking about if he was here. But, and then maybe Sarah and Tammy, just because I know that they're competing in King Kong and I know that they've done well before. For the men, top 5 in men gets real tough. Let me see. Top 5 men in King Kong. Jed Johnson has gotten runner-up last 2 years in a row. So 2022, or no, sorry, 2022 and 2021, Jed Johnson finished second both those years. I assume with both of those finishes, Jed could, with this event lineup, Jed could be right back in that same mix. So I would say Jed Johnson is, I'm not saying Jed's going to win it. I'm just saying Jed's in the top 5. I would say Alexei Tukalov usually does King Kong, and Alexei usually is right there for his weight class. Jason Dingy is tough and right around that top part. So Alexei, Jason Dingy, Jed Johnson. You'd have to say, what's his name? I'm just drawing a blank, dude. I'm sorry. It's like thinking about names like almost kills me here. I almost need like a sheet in front of me or something. But there's somebody else I was thinking of. The winner, Ivan Popchenko.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if he competes, I would throw him in the mix. And then going off of, and another one that I would say might be on the fringe of that top 5 would be Joe Hodgson.
Yes.
Because like if it was like maybe like Axel or different events, maybe I'd say, okay, Joe might not do as well. But when it comes down to these like certain single hand events like this, Joe's very dangerous in a King Kong setup. Joe's got a strong grip regardless, but in a King Kong setup, Joe's very dangerous. And with speaking with Joe, I know I don't know how a couple of his lifts are for the implements, but I know how a few of his lifts are for certain implements, and I won't reveal what he's lifted, but the training numbers are pretty high. So yeah, I'll throw those guys out there. Ivan, Jed, Jason, Hari himself could be right there in the top 5 because he usually is too. I'm not putting him in there because he asked me the question, but Hari Talonen and I don't know if it's Jesse or Jesse Pignonen, but those guys, those 5 or 7 I just named are all right there. So hopefully that answers it. But those are just ones that are coming to the top of my head. But if I had a sheet of paper, I might change a couple. But yeah.
Perfect. We get back to Ohio. I have a question from Jason Dingy. He wants to know, Zach, what is your favorite contest implement? Also, who is the best looking member of Team Ohio?
I'm the best looking member of Team Ohio.
And what
Yeah.
about the implement? Which is your favorite contest implement?
Favorite contest implement. It's tough because I like the feats more than I like competition. So I can tell you what my favorite feats are. Competition lifts are tough. It's how I look at it. It's not necessarily one implement. It's I kind of piece it together as a lineup. So it's like, what 3 to 4 lifts together do I like? You know, um, because I like rolling handles a lot. It's just that there's so many people that are so damn strong at them. I don't place that great at it. But it's still good. I'm really anything thick bar and pinch, honestly. Anything thick bar and pinch. I know that's not a good answer, but like um Saxon and Euro are cool. And I like any diameter Saxon, 2, 3 inch. I don't care. I like them both. Um and then like the rolling handles, I like crushers. I don't like a whole lot of rolling handles outside of the crusher. Crushers, that just that solid steel, probably my favorite rolling handle. But yeah, that's a couple of them, just to name a few. But usually, like I said, I don't look at like a favorite lift like as a single piece. I look at them together as like a package deal. And it's like, okay, I like 3 out of 4 of those, or 3 out of 4 of those are really good. I can be okay with that one being off. But if it's like I'm looking at an event lineup and like 3 out of 4 suck, then I'm like, I don't even want to do that competition, you know? So that's how I kind of view the contests. So
Perfect. Now we go out from the US. We go to Canada with the other Zach Ebel.
mhm.
He wants to know, what does he think will be the future of the sport? Pretty open question.
Future of the sport.
Yeah.
Um, like what do I think will happen with the sport in general?
Sure.
Okay. I think that I think it will gain popularity. I think that the organizations that are around will gain popularity. I also question sometimes if the organizations that have been around will last very long. So I know that one might strike people as kind of weird, but um, Gripsport's been running a little bit longer, so it kind of has a longer history. But Armlifting USA has only been around for what, 5 years? Anything that's been around for 5 years, I don't necessarily see it as a guarantee that it'll be around forever. You know, like football's been around for 100 years, boxing's been around for 100 years. You can pretty much guarantee, like next year, someone's going to be boxing, or someone there's going to be some boxing promotion. There's going to be the NFL. Like there's still going to be a high school team that has football going on. Like it's been around long enough. It ain't going nowhere. As an organization, only being around 5 years, maybe 2 or 3 years from now, there is no Arm Lifting USA. Maybe 2 to 3 years from now, maybe Gripsport International changes its name again and it does something different. I don't know the evolution of the sport. I'm just saying that the two main bodies that we have might disappear or change names or have some evolution happen to them because it's already happened in the past. So that's a possibility for the future of the sport. I also would say that with it possibly gaining popularity in the two organizations, don't be surprised if you start seeing it go a little more mainstream with guys trying to create third party organizations or, competitors basically. So here's Armlifting USA, here's Gripsport. Well, now we have a couple other promotions that are maybe going to start their own thing because it does gain popularity and they don't want to bow down to either of these two. So they're going to go do their own thing. Or like I said, maybe one of the two big dogs falls off somewhere. And then, in comes, the door opens for another promoter or another person to sanction. So I wouldn't put it past anybody to start their own organization or maybe add into it. So future of the sport, I see it growing, but what organization that is, which organization lasts and maintains, and does a new one pop up? I think that's stuff that no one really knows. So I think the landscape could look much different, 2 to 3 years from now. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the future entails for that, but I see the sport gaining in popularity. It's just, I think the organizations and the way that things run in the future might not be the way people think they are 2 to 3 years from now. So yeah, just a prediction.
Perfect. The second from Zach is, what does he think could be a way to bring the sport more access internationally?
Doing stuff like this, having you in a completely different continent, having people in different countries like this, we got Hari Talonen sending questions in. I'm sitting in North Carolina and Ohio. You're in Chile, or doing your thing. Like, it's like, I think that's how you make it bigger internationally, is just have people like you that are willing to put in the groundwork where you're at and bring people to the sport. Have people where I'm at, like I'm out trying to put in groundwork. It's like the same stuff a lot of these guys have been doing for years. I think it's just being open to the different countries and continents, and goes back to communication. It's all how people communicate with each other. There just needs to be opportunity and communication. And sometimes you have to put more effort in on those. Maybe there's not always going to be the perfect opportunity where, oh, hey, some big name person from a foreign country messaged me today and we're going to talk about grip. Maybe you got to bug them a little bit. Maybe it takes 2 months to get an email back. I'm just saying, like, you need opportunity and communication. And sometimes both of those you might have to press a little bit, or you might have to, not like in a bad way, but like, you might have to, it's not just going to, no, like someone from a different country is not just going to knock on your front door and be like, hey, Zach, what's up with this Gripsport thing? Or, it's like, you got to put in the miles. And yeah, with international lifters, just talk to more international lifters competing and talking with each other, doing stuff like this and spreading the word. More people, more talking. That's what I would say.
And his final question is, what does he believe to be the most impressive feat of grip strength?
All time.
The history
Most
ever.
most impressive feat of grip strength all time. I've had some of these discussions. Man, it's tough because you would almost want to go down categories like best gripper close, best dumbbell lift. Like, then it gets a little easier because you can kind of narrow down. When you just say best of across like 4 disciplines, it's like saying who's the best football, basketball, and baseball player, and it's like Michael Jordan. It's like you start like it's like you can name people, but it's like there's like almost like different sports, or there's almost like different lifts, so it makes it really tough to pick one. Man, you know what? For what it's worth, and I don't know if I'm a little bit biased on this one, but there's factors for it. Okay, I got factors for it. I'm gonna say at a body weight under 215 pounds, for Adam Glass to lift 200-inch dumbbells, 200-pound inch dumbbells level, is probably one of the best things I've ever seen. And that's not to take away from bigger feet guys, but like I said, Brian Shaw lifts the Millennium dumbbell. Okay, you've been juicing and you weigh 440 pounds. Is it crazy that you lifted a 230-pound dumbbell? I mean, I'm not trying to talk shit, but like, I just said I lifted a 200-pound dumbbell and I fucking like barely weigh over 200 pounds. We just talked about how I got like 7 3/4 hands. I barely weigh over 200 pounds and I lift a 200. So is it that mind-boggling to anybody that a lifelong juiced up athlete that weighs 440 pounds with probably 9-inch hands can lift 30 more pounds than me? Is that, I mean, Okay, I'm just saying. So when I see someone like Adam, who is drug free at a light body weight, he's basically holding his body weight level with an inch dumbbell that weighs 200 pounds in both hands, and he's
Yes.
pulling it from the floor. I would say that's got to be one of the best ones. Is that the greatest ever? It's impossible for me to say the greatest ever, and I won't even say that's the greatest ever. So I can't answer his question, but that impresses me more than the other stuff I named. And yeah, but like I could name, you know, I mean, Carl's gripper closes are pretty fucking awesome, as of late. So like that's great to see. Um, yeah, it's tough. Like there's some lifts that Lane Snook's done that are like wild and I could name, but like I said, I like so many of these different lifters and big names, but when it just comes down to the factors of it, I'm not trying to say it's like, oh, well, Adam's lift is better than Mark Henry cleaning and pressing it. I'm not necessarily saying it's greater. I'm just saying take into account what you're looking at. When both those dumbbells weigh 200 pounds and both hands have to be equally strong, and the guy's drug free and he's barely over 200 pounds himself, there's a lot to be said there. So that's my answer for that one. I probably went into too much detail on that one, but like I said, you want to give good answers to people. And yeah, I can relate to that lift more because like I said, kind of being similar size, that being one of the people that I looked up to when I first got into the sport and saw their videos, seeing a lift like that and me lifting the bells that I lift and the stuff that I do, I can envision how hard that lift is. I don't know what it's like to do steroids and weigh 440 pounds. I can't tell you about that.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I'd say Adam picking up 2-inch dumbbells that weighed 200 pounds at a light body weight, drug free. It's pretty badass feat to me. So, yeah.
Perfect. I have a question from someone that has interviewed you as well. Rob Vintage Weights. I don't know his last
Oh,
name, but you know
yep.
Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Zach blows on his hands more than any other competitor. How much is a ritual or habit, and how much is practical to moisten the hands?
It's not really a habit. It is kind of a ritual, but there's a purpose for it. So, like when I'm chalking at a competition, and this will depend on what the lift is, right? But what I do is I'll take like the block, I'll like rub on my hands just enough to like get a little bit of like chalk caked up. Then I'll take my hands and then I work it in my fingers. I work the block, that where that chalk came off the block. I work it into the hands. I basically get my hands to where like if I were to try to like snap my fingers, they're stuck. They don't want to go. You know what I mean? That's the kind of texture I want. I don't want excess to where like chalk is sliding off my hands. So I get the block, apply the chalk. I work all the chalk in to where there's basically no excess chalk, clap a couple times, excess chalk goes out, and then once I have my hands like perfectly textured, then I'll just little bit of moisture. And that's like kind of how I train, and I kind of practice it for each implement to where, yeah, if you see me kind of like blowing on my hands and stuff, it's me getting my hands right for that specific texture or that specific lift. And if I don't have to do it, I won't do it. So I don't do it all the time. But yeah, good observation by him. But yeah, it's just me trying to get my hands to feel as, optimal as they can for each lift.
Perfect. And we are getting into the final questions after 3 hours and a half.
Hey, it's all good, man. Yeah.
I'm having a good time, Zach, but I think, well, this is a PR, or at least for Gripsport Latino.
It's either a PR or it'll either be a PR or the least watched episode ever, but that's okay. Whatever.
Well, it's really good stuff. This is kind of a let's say bizarre question. It's from a Gripsport athlete from Chile, my friend Nicolás Piña.
It's
Uh,
bizarre. Okay.
it's kind of
I'm in,
bizarre. So be
I'm
warned.
interested.
It's like Mortal Kombat, since you are into combat sports, and
Okay.
he's into combat sports as well. He has done karate all of his
Okay.
life. So,
Okay.
uh, do you think that you could rip a heart or a throat from someone's body given your grip? Like, you know?
Well, for the heart, now the rib cage is going to get in the way, so I'm not pulling anybody's heart out. Um, uh, do I think? This I'm not trying to be funny here. Do I think I could grab somebody by the trachea and like crush or choke them? Yeah, but like to pull someone's heart out, no, I can't reach through rib and cartilage and everything else. Like that'd be insane. So no, but like just to like take your hand, almost like thick bar, or just strangle or like crunch something. Yeah, I think you could damage somebody's esophagus with the level of grip strength that you know what I mean. Especially with like a fight background. Like it's like not to be crazy, but like let's say we're like in a real life situation. Like let's say you punch them a couple times and they're out of it and they're not even able to fully resist you, and then you know, yeah, I think it. There's probably a lot of ways that you could like crush or damage the throat. Now I don't know. This will be one for Chaz. I don't know if I could like pull a full on MacGruber. If you've ever seen the movie MacGruber, I don't think I can rip the esophagus out. So I'm not claiming I could do a full MacGruber. Okay. I can't do classic MacGruber and pull the whole throat out. But I'm saying if it's just stayed where it was and you just like crunched it or did some kind of like actual damage to it inside the neck, yeah, I think, you know, crunching something small inside there, messing it up with the grip strength that some of us have, I think would be totally possible. But I don't think we're ripping. I don't think ripping anything out.
Well, the people that gets
Too much.
to
Too much is attached.
yeah, I think the people that gets to this part of the episode will laugh with the question. Well, Zach, always in my episodes, I want the guest to give like a last word for the audience, especially for the novice people. What would you like the novices and people who's getting just into grip sport to take away from this interview? What will be like your message
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
newcomers?
Especially if I'm addressing newcomers, is man, there's never going to be an ideal time. You're never going to feel strong enough to jump into your first competition. There's never going to be the right day that you're going to feel like you're going to pull your PR. You just got to show up and do it, and the stuff will take care of itself. So getting into the sport, getting into the training, even if you don't compete, even if you just want to get into the sport and train to improve your life, that's the biggest thing I would bring up is that you don't have to compete for the sport to improve your life. You can improve your life through training and never compete in a single thing in your life. That's fine. Competition sometimes enhances it. Sometimes it gives people bigger goals. It's maybe more fun, but that's everybody's personal preference. The thing I would say for new people is don't get discouraged looking too high up the mountain when you see all the crazy stuff that's been done by some of these people. You're walking your own path, so measure yourself by your own path and not anybody else's. Like, if I look at some of the things Carl's doing, and that's going to like bum me out about where I'm at, or that shouldn't even affect me. Like, you know, Carl's got his path, Jed has his path, you're on your own path, I have my own. So like, yeah, we all use each other as motivation to try to pump each other up, or to, you know, kind of I don't say like move the needle, but you know what I mean? Like we to like, yeah, you know, one person does something, then another person does it. Then we're all kind of chasing these feats. So, or chasing competition. So I think it's important to have that. But at the same time, while we're competing with one another or while we're comparing ourselves to other people, sometimes for the new people, it's not so much about how you stack up against everybody else as much as it's just do honest lifts, do honest training, and improve yourself. And don't pay attention to fake stuff on the internet. Don't fall for gimmicks. Don't fall for shitty coaches. Don't fall for BS. Just, you know, seek out the right people, the right advice, surround yourself around good people, honest training, honest work, and kind of stay on your own path, because in today's world, I mean, it's like they used to say, like with, and I know I'm like, that's another subject, but like, it's kind of like how fucking makeup or women's magazines, they're all like all the covers are photoshopped and shit. And then you almost get like all these women that have like body image issues because they see all these other women and they look like this on the magazine, but it's like it's fake or it's most likely fake. So it's like kind of the same thing with a lot of training online nowadays. You get all these hype videos and all this bullshit where people are trying to get attention. Like they're not even making the videos because they're training. They're making the videos to get attention, and they're just doing it by pretending to train. So just don't fall for the the 18-year-old that's lifting 800 pounds. So you should just never deadlift. You're weak. Or, oh, this person closed the number 4 the first time they touched it. And so you should never train grippers. You get what I'm saying? Don't get defeated by other people's bullshit because one, they're not you and it's a completely different path. Makes no sense to compare yourself to it. If you use it as positive fuel, that's good. But don't take any of that shit negative. And yeah, just like keep your head down, do your own thing. Probably just stay offline. The more people stay offline and just train in person, probably the better. But you also get a lot of good ideas online too. So I guess it's like any other tool. It's how good you use it. But yeah, just start training and train for your own reasons. It's very similar to what Carl said on an episode that I did with him was, the sport doesn't really have a clear, we have organizations, we have competitions, but like if I go out in my backyard and I never film it and I lift the inch dumbbell 200 times, that's what I want. If that's what I wanted to do, then that's what training means to me. Not everything has to be a talent show or begging for attention and tagging and hashtagging famous people or gaining a following. Like, make grip training whatever you want it to be for you. And I kind of agree with him on that, is that, there's no true definition of what the sport can be. So create your own definition of the sport, create your own code and stick by that. That's all.
Perfect, Zach. Well, I'm really grateful for this interview, Zach. I really had a good time. I really wanted to do a crossover with another of the shows, and it's super
Yeah.
good to do it with you. And man, I really like. I told you before, I really like the way you speak, the way you talk, and how you narrate like the situation. You describe what's happening and what do you think. I don't know. You're such a good guest. You're a good host, and also I know that you are a good guest as well. So, thanks for your time.
Oh, no problem, man. Like I said, I feel like I've been off my game a little bit lately, dealing with a lot of other stuff. So hopefully the things I'm putting out on my end, and hopefully this interview will be up to standard, and hopefully people aren't like bored to death by it. But yeah, I feel like I've been off my game a little bit, trying to get back on track with some stuff. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show. And maybe sometime here when I get around to it, I'll throw you in on a panel for Grip Show or something, and you can come do my show. So it'll be like a both ways thing. So thanks for having me on, man, for sure.
Excellent, and I hope we meet next year
Yeah,
on Heavy Hands 2024. So
that'd be awesome, man. Yeah, I'd love to lift with you and compete with you and everything else, and see you do some good feats.